Hello and welcome to A Life of Creation. My name is Chad and I am the host of this channel. If you've liked what you've seen so far, please like and subscribe and click that notification button so that you know when I post videos. Tonight I am excited because we get to talk to Jonathan Chu, who is a talented violinist. He is a photographer himself and he makes coffee. I can't wait to hear his story. Let's get into it. Just use an overlay.
Man, let's do it.
All right, so welcome to A Life of Creation. This here is Jonathan Chu. He's going to give us his life story about creating.
Oh man.
You
Well,
don't have to
thanks so
go
much for
your whole
having me.
life.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Man, thank you so much for having me and just having this conversation. I think it's really awesome. I started violin. I'm a violin, classically trained violinist, currently working in the Christian music industry, playing for a band called Rend Collective. But I've been in the music industry for about 20 years, and I guess going on 21 years. And it has been a wild journey. And where it all started for me as a violinist was being forced and dragged to violin lessons because my mom made me. I come from a pretty traditional, Asian household, Chinese household, where my mom was like, "You have to play an instrument and you have to be good at this thing." And come to find out, I'm really horrible at math in school, but I picked up violin and I fell in love with it. Um, at around so I started at 3 and started really falling in love with the instrument about 10. So it took a little bit, but for most instruments, I would say most most students, most instrument players, there's going to be a period of time where like that learning curve is really high, and then you hit this kind of plateau where you start to really love it, and you kind of like can do a lot of things, and then all of a sudden you've got this next level that you've got to climb, this next hill. And so I was fortunate to be involved with a performing group at a young age that went and did a lot of demonstrations and played in front of people. And so at a young age, I was already standing in front of people playing, not realizing that's what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life, essentially. And so I studied classical from 3 until I was 23, 24 when I left college. I dropped out of college. I was a performance major at the University of Memphis and loved it, loved the challenges and the being around a lot of other musicians that were actively like digging into their instrument, learning their craft. Being challenged by that was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed my time in performance school and in at the university. But the opportunity to start touring popped up, and I had a very kind teacher that saw that I was already leaning, kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out of college. And she was like, Jonathan, college will always be here. Like school will always be available to you. You can do whatever you want to, but when the opportunity is standing in front of you, you need to grab hold and go for it. And so she was the one that was kind of to encourage me. It's like, hey, just go for it, start. And so that was in 2003, and that was my first group that I ever played with. Um, but yeah, so that's been my journey, and along the way, I've learned a lot about creation, about the idea of being not just able to create, but wanting to create, and also what steps you need to take to be ready to create. And I've taught a couple of master classes and a couple of like summer camps and like giving ideas like what it is that to be a musician professionally, but also just a musician that um, can jump into any scenario, what that looks like. And I call it my 3 Ps. It's purpose, having a purpose, practicing, and performance. And it starts with the idea that with creation, you have to have a reason for it. That could just simply be I want to explore my instrument. I want to explore my camera. I want to try something new. And as a photographer, I get that too. Like I love
Mhm.
photography. I love going out and trying things and experimenting and attempting ideas and like looking at other inspiring artists and go like, how did they do that? And figure out how to accomplish that myself. But at the same time, going like, what else unique could I do to to give on to the next person, essentially?
Right. I
And
mean,
so the
kind of
idea of
make it your
purpose,
own.
yeah, absolutely. But the idea of purpose of having a reason why you, for me specifically, or the student that I'm talking to, having a purpose why you get on stage. What is the reason why you get? Well, for me personally, it's joy, sharing joy, um, because music as a language is spoken around the world and can be communicated around the world. And that's one of the most unique languages because you don't have to have a common verbal communication language, but I can pull up my violin pretty much anywhere in the world and play a melody and draw someone in. And I think that's really beautiful and powerful, knowing that I can literally travel the world with my instrument and be able to have a conversation. I can evoke an idea, evoke a feeling in a moment without ever knowing how to actually communicate on a um, verbal level. Um, and so my purpose is to share joy, share hope with people that they're worth it and that music first is a bond between us.
Yeah.
And so that's my purpose. And I always encourage students like find a reason, find a purpose to get on stage. And then next to practice with that purpose. So you're going to practice with that purpose in mind because you want to be able to understand that process of creating a melody, creating an idea, and being able to hand that off to that person because you do have to entrust it to your listener, and that listener has to hopefully receive that, be willing to receive it, and interpret, and hopefully that you've done your job and by passing that off well, and that they interpret it the way you're wanting to interpret it.
Yeah.
And so practicing with that purpose, but then also practicing forward to performance and practicing in a way that you are preparing yourself that if you get called tomorrow to jump on stage with whatever band, you could go, sure, I'll do that. One of those examples is that I use is I played for Skillet for a little while, and as a violinist for Skillet, I met the former guitar player. His name was Ben Casca, and Ben and I met because I was folding towels on tour of another tour, and he was like, "Do you do anything else?" I was like, "Well, I told him it's like I play one song with this other band, and that's it. Like that's the only time I play violin the whole night." He was like, "Dude, I got to come hear you play." It's like, "Well, tonight's the last night, so you better come listen tonight." So I met him through that process, and we stayed in touch, became friends. He was a photographer, so we were trading photo ideas and things like that back and forth while he was on tour. And I about 3 or 4 weeks after that tour finished that we were on together, where I was folding towels, I get a call from him. He's like, "Hey, would you be interested in coming playing violin for us? Where we've got a lot of new strings in our new sound." And I said, "Sure, yeah." It's like we're in rehearsals. He's like, "Well, we were actually wondering if you would fly out like this weekend." I was like, "What? I'm sorry, what?" He's like, "Yeah, we're about to start tour, and we just thought like it'd be really neat to have a violin player on this." I'm like, "Well, okay. Well, how many songs do I need to learn?" He's like, "Well, there's about 8 songs." I was like, "All right, send them." And so that weekend I fly to Indiana, Elkhart, Indiana. I can still remember. I fly to Indiana, jump on stage, have all my notes, have all my like cheat sheets on the stage, and I played the dress rehearsal. And they were like, "Do you want to play the show?" I was like, "I guess. What do I need to wear?" And so they were like, "Well, just what, they were in t-shirts and jeans at the time. It was like, just whatever you got on is great." I was like, "Perfect." So I get up there and play, and have a blast. And that landed me a job for about 8 years. And you never know what you're going to walk into, but knowing that I could, I've had the practice. I've had the ability to do what I need to do, get up on stage and do the job, and do it well. Um, that all came from the previous like things.
Yeah.
practicing, purpose. And then when you're on stage performing, what I always say is like performing with that goal of your first thing. It's a cycle,
Yeah.
performing because you have that joy
Right.
and you're using all of your practice into your performance now.
Right.
And to always kind of keep that cycle in your head going, like, okay, what's the next thing I could be practicing for?
Right.
How does my purpose still fit within all of that?
Yeah.
And gives me reason to get up on stage and play. And so
Yeah.
that's my passion and my joy and my heart behind creating, but then also hoping to pass that off to another generation, saying, you have the ability to do this. I hope that you take my job one day, take over my job, because there needs to be another player out there that desires to share music and share something with people. And specifically for me, that's joy. I want people to walk out feeling encouraged, knowing that that a little bit of music passed on to them gives them a little more reason for the next day,
Yeah.
and that they are encouraged by that. And so,
Yeah. I-
yeah, that's a Cliff Note version of my story.
yeah. Well, those three P's are why I will probably never be a professional musician.
No, 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 no.
I don't
Stop
practice
that.
enough. Um,
Stop that.
but but I'm okay with it because it's like
Yeah.
it's a personal hobby of mine and I enjoy
Yeah.
it and it brings me
Yeah.
joy. But that
Yes,
is
absolutely. But
so
that's a purpose. It brings you
right,
joy. Like, and so you're practicing in a way that brings you joy. I think
right,
that's ultimately the like it can be shifted. Like it's a sliding table, you know?
right, right. And
You
but
know,
I think I just turned 44 and I think the older I get, the more I look towards the joy of what I do.
yeah.
Um, and I have two small boys now, and I'm like, I want them to experience joy
Yeah.
because the world right now is lacking a lot of joy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so even the songs I try and write, it's they may be like sad songs, but it's finding the joy within that sadness
Yeah.
because
Totally. My
I
wife
mean,
wrote a song recently. In the song, the phrase is "grief and gratitude can live hand in hand." And it's
right,
like you can hold both, like having those like you have to kind of juggle those things a little bit. It's like,
yeah,
but opposing feelings. I love Inside Out, the movie Inside Out, and
yeah,
I love that idea that sadness and joy can live in the same sphere, and that they often have a hand in hand relationship with that. And so you have a purpose. You've got
yeah.
it.
But I mean, I can apply those three P's to photography.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
I had a purpose in
Yeah.
it, and I practiced a lot.
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
and now I perform it professionally.
Absolutely.
And it's it is remarkable those three things that you're talking about because
Yeah.
those things can create a career,
Yes,
really.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I never ever thought I would make money shooting photos.
Yes.
And I support my family, and
Yeah.
I still go, how did that happen?
As a violinist, let me tell you, I feel
Right.
that.
I was going to ask you, since you were, you know, started at such a young age, at, you know, parents pressuring you, pushing you, were they sad that you joined rock bands?
I had a lot of pushback early on. That I honestly had more pushback about going to school for violin. They were
Really?
like, absolutely not. Like, you're not going to college for violin. And it made me laugh because it was like you've poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into this thing, but then
Right.
you don't want me to actually keep going and doing the thing. And I just made me laugh. And I told him, it's like, hey, I've got like an 80% scholarship to go to school because of music. And so you're saying you don't want me to do that. And they're like, well, give it a shot. Like, think about doubling majors. I was like, doubling? Like, no
Yeah.
way. Like, I know how much is going to be involved in just music. And I was not doing well. I was not a, a good student as far as like the academia side of things, like that. I'm ADHD dyslexic, and I'm still learning kind of as a person as I grow older. I also turned 44. And so as I grow older, like learning my coping mechanisms and how I've learned to cope with ADHD and the way that I see life. And I realized that traditional learning was never meant for me.
Right.
I've learned so much more life experiences, life skills, things that I still use day to day merely from doing and being shown and kind of walking through those things rather than sitting in a classroom and learning. And I think
Yeah.
that creatives that choose to walk that path of whether that be a trade school or an art school, like you're gonna find life more enjoyable in the thing that you do have passion for. If you're around people and that understand how you think, first of all, and you're not forced to um, always be kind of splitting your brain between like academia and I think academia is great, great. Like learning biology, history, all of that is
Yeah.
super important. I love as a person that loves to still learn. I go and read that on my own and discover things, and so that's the way I've learned. Um, Math is a whole nother thing, not my strong suit. But it was really funny when I said that, hey, I got a scholarship for performance school at the University of Memphis, and they were like, no. I was like, wait, what? What is happening here? But my parents finally kind of agreed and let me go, and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity. I'm grateful that I had the scholarship. It
Yeah.
led to some lifelong friends and a lot of skills that I use to this day. Going through performance school was super. It was super important for me.
Yeah. I just talked to someone who is currently in school, and he had signed up for like performance guitar,
Oh yeah,
and he's just like, yeah, this isn't for me.
yeah.
Because he's like, they expected you to practice 6 hours a day. And he's
Uh,
like,
by the time I was,
I don't have
yeah,
time for that.
yeah. By the time I was in, so my third year in, I was playing between 8 to 10 hours a day. I had my violin in my hand between 8 to 10 hours a day. Gnarly,
And
man. It was
yeah,
gnarly. Like I am I 100% believe is by the grace of God that I didn't walk out of violin performance school without a physical injury or some other mental like state. Because I've
yeah,
I've had friends that have come back out of performance school just like mentally scarred from the
yeah,
pressure and the amount of just negativity and like harsh words that were said in performance school. And they're amazing players and still have incredible chops and can play, but they definitely were uh, affected by that for
yeah.
sure.
And I mean, it's like you're taking something that is such like a personal enjoyment, and you're like
Yeah.
beating it over the head with them
Yeah.
to where you
Yes.
may suck the whole joy out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's such like a fine balance with that.
It is, and it's so tough. Like, I mean, I think that's any student that's wanting to go, that's listening and are interested in going into performance school. You really have to kind of weigh that idea that when you get in, there is going to be an exorbitant amount of pressure put on you, and not yourself just putting the pressure on you, but quite a number of other people putting pressure on you, because you will have to be uh, holding your instrument for you know more than you sleep most of the times.
Yeah,
Like I still to this day like I cannot believe that I played that much in college.
right.
I was, starting the day out first thing in a practice room before I went to my first class, like, going to psychology. I'd get an hour in there and I'd get back from psychology and I'd go straight back to the practice room and start practicing some more. And then I'd go straight into like orchestra. And so I'd play in the orchestra for an hour and then we go straight to chamber music and play chamber music for 2 hours and then private lessons and just nonstop. Like it was nonstop. But I earned like I'm proud of that time. I earned my
Yeah,
chops from that, and I know how to watch out for injuries from that. Like I learned a lot about self care for my arms and my hands, and how to listen to my body for that.
yeah.
But
I mean, I could see, if you do have the aspirations to be a professional,
Yeah,
how important that is, because
yeah,
it's like your proving grounds,
yeah, yeah.
and
It's honestly building up. It's building up the endurance to do the
yeah,
thing. Um, because orchestra, like I haven't played in a professional orchestra in a long time, but I mean those days are long. 5-6 hours of
yeah,
playing, um, and then you go gig somewhere or teach a lesson afterwards. You're holding your instrument. I mean that's the exact same length of time that I would have been holding my instrument in college. And so it's just
yeah.
didn't get paid for it back then. I mean, I guess I did. I got a scholarship. So
Right, yeah.
yeah.
You got to trade.
Yeah, exactly. I went to trade school.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's crazy. And when you were talking about how you could take your violin around the world,
Yeah.
having horribly, written violin parts for things I've done, just even through like my music, the
Uh-huh.
violin, I think especially invokes a more emotion than a lot of instruments.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
I could just picture, or I can hear it.
Yeah.
You playing a melody that's happy, people would
Yeah.
understand that.
Yes.
Melancholy,
Yeah.
dramatic, like the violin just can do so much of that.
Yeah. The cello, I say my second favorite instrument is a cello, stringed instrument is a bowed stringed instrument. Let's get
Yeah.
real specific. Is the cello.
Yeah.
I always love the cello. And Yo-Yo Ma actually did exactly what I'm talking about, which is where that inspired. He's one of my big inspirations as a cello player, but as a musician, as a communicator. Um, he actually did that. He traveled around the world with a cello and went to different cultures and people groups and learned melodies together. And then he recorded them and played them along with other instruments from that area. It's called the Silk Road albums, Silk Road
I'll have
Journey.
to check that out.
Um, it's beautiful. It is truly stunning because he takes like very specific like folk tunes or folk melodies from different like Africa and Asia, India, and he plays cello over them or with them. And it's one of the most fascinating, inspiring records I've ever heard. And it was the part of my journey was so when I was with Skillet, I had these little moments at the end of a show where I got to have a little like solo, like a uh little encore type moment.
Right.
And if I was in a country that I knew a melody was really important, I figured out how to work it into my solo.
Oh,
And
awesome.
every point in that night, I'd play and I get super nervous because I'm like, please remember how to play this right. Please remember. So I'd throw it that little bit into my solo and then end my solo. But it was so fun to hear the crowd respond
Right.
to that melody or to that idea, and they would all know all knew exactly what I was playing.
It's crazy.
And so to have that moment with the audience is still to this day one of my favorite things. Like, yeah, I get to do like I play for an Irish band now, like a Northern Irish band, and to be able to play Irish fiddle. I learned I kind of self-taught Irish fiddling. I had a gentleman here in Memphis that uh, kind of brought me under his wing and taught me the style and like the way the instrument kind of speaks certain melodies and certain things. He kind of helped walk me through learning that. But the first time I got to play Irish fiddle in Ireland in a pub was mind blowing for me because I was like, this is it. Like this is just cultural music here. But for
Yeah.
me, it's been this thing that I've like journeyed to actually get to do.
Yeah.
And to be able to sit down, play a tune, and everybody else in the room automatically just pick up and start playing along was still it's just a really fun moment for me.
Yeah.
Still one of my yeah.
Me and my wife went to Ireland for Christmas before we
Uh-huh.
had kids.
Yeah,
And
uh-huh.
that was the first time and only time I've been there. And a story I still talk about is, we were in a pub. There's, guys at a table just banging out jams, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just like, holy cow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then they finish, and one of the guy gets up and says, "Hey, my name's, whatever," to the guy
Yeah.
playing across the table to him.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just like, they didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
I'm like, no wonder
It's so
Ireland
fun.
pumps out great musicians.
Yeah. They just are always sitting down playing, jamming, hearing each other's stuff.
Yeah, it was just it boggled my mind, and it just made me love like the that culture so
Yeah,
much.
oh yeah.
And it was
I'm honored to be traveling with this group and playing and getting to go actually to Ireland and play there.
yeah,
It's very fun.
yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful country. And me and my wife are like, we need to go back.
Yeah.
Like
Yes, you should totally do
we almost wrote our parents and like just box up stuff.
it.
We ain't coming back.
It's so beautiful there.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful there.
Yeah,
Man,
we didn't get up to the Northern Ireland. We were just in
in
like
the
yeah,
Republic. Yeah.
yeah, we
It's
stayed with someone in Galway
oh,
for
that's on my list. Next time
yeah.
I'm on Ireland, I'm making the trip south and trying to explore some down there that way.
Yeah, it was we did like the Dingle Peninsula, the
Oh,
Ring of
cool.
Kerry.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
You could talk about photography a little bit too. I know
Yeah, sure.
you do that a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not a profession anymore. At least not mostly because I'm just not marketing myself like to tell people I'm shooting, but I do a lot of photography, landscape photography, cityscapes. Those are two of my like big like favorite things to do. I shoot portraits every now and then, but I've learned that I can I'm good with physical manipulation of the camera, not good physically manipulating the subject. Like learning how to communicate that idea of like, hey, I need you to turn this way. Give me a little more this or that. I still haven't figured out that set of combo of right words and
I've
stuff.
been
And
doing it 18 years and
yeah.
it's still hard.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I
Well, I
mean,
mean, the violin way, like it's still hard to me. Like I have to work at it every day.
yeah.
But yeah,
I,
photography. Go ahead.
oh,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think we talked about it earlier, before we even started, but it was like I don't like talking and I don't like, being in front. So like
Right.
to tell someone to do
Yeah.
something is always kind of like, you should just know this. You're a professional model.
Right. Just do
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah,
Read my mind.
just
No,
do
I
it.
think that's why I like cityscapes, landscapes, because like you don't have to you kind of are at the mercy of nature and mercy at the things in front of you, but for me the patience is there. Like I'm waiting. I'm willing to wait it out to find that moment. And so
Right.
um yeah, I shoot Nikon for full frame and then Fuji I have a old school XE1, like first generation XE1. That's my little backpack camera that I travel with, and I love shooting. I love just walking around, trying my best to be a good street photographer. It's a little harder with um, it's a little harder with. I don't know, like I guess in my brain I'm always thinking about like, am I being creepy? Like, am I? But that's kind of like the nature of street photography.
Right.
But some of my favorite photos from street photography have happened because I was willing to like actually be covert and like do the thing and like
Yeah.
make myself feel awkward for that moment of like trying to capture the moment. And so
Yeah.
I have a couple of really neat shots. One I can think of is this shot in New York. It's in why am I drawing a blank? It's in Central Park. It's the famous angel statue, and there's a tunnel that goes underneath.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was sitting off to the side, and I saw this couple kind of being romantic and talking to each other. And I pulled my camera up just enough where I could see it and framed them well. And he like leans in for a kiss, and like she kicks her leg up. And I was
Oh, nice.
like just had it on burst mode, and I was like, I got a shot, and it's one of my favorite. You've got a good contrast of like the dark from the tunnel and the light, and they're like right in the middle, like or just slightly off, like off to the left side of the portrait or left side of the frame. And I'm like, I can't believe I did it! Like it was like a successful street photography moment.
Now here's the question. Did you go up to him and say, "Hey, I really got a really good shot of you
No,
guys"?
no, I was like looking down and like going, whoa, this like it looks so good, and I look up and they're gone. I was like, oh, do I go hunt them down? Like,
Yeah,
do I get their name or number? And I didn't do that.
yeah, yeah. I watch some of those like Instagram guys who, go out in Times Square or something
Yeah.
and just grab random people and do photo shoots with
Yeah.
them. I'm like, man, you guys are brave people.
Yeah. I think it's hard because like for me that social media is weird about that. Like that whole, hey, I'm a street photographer. I don't want to take your picture and like can I do some portraits of you and like finding out. I think that's really neat, but street photography is always, at least from my understanding and just watching like looking at traditional street photographers, has always been 100% candid.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
just walking around and like seeing moments and grabbing those stills. And so this idea of kind of drumming up the social media for the likes or views or whatever. I'm sure, yeah, you've got more followers, whatever now. That's not street photography.
yeah. No, I I would say my boss would probably call it, street fashion
Street
photography
fashion,
or something,
absolutely.
something.
Yeah, like
Like you see a cool
almost
person.
like flash portraits,
Hmm.
portraitures, like a flash mob portraiture. You're like just hijacking for that one moment this like person's time and like
Right.
taking portraits of them. I think it's cool. I think it's a really unique thing.
Yeah, it's a neat, just kind of um social experience,
Yeah, absolutely.
experiment kind of. It's just
Who's willing
I
to like in that moment get their portrait taken?
yeah, I personally am just not the person to go take those
Yeah.
photos.
Yeah.
But I mean, I kind of did something similar with the Faces of Music project.
Yeah.
I would go up to bands and be like, "Hey, after your show, as everyone's, trying to clean up, can you guys stay and do portraits?" I
Yeah.
had a few guys give me, like you gotta be kidding me. But
Yeah. It's like, what? I don't have time for that. I
yeah,
gotta load
but
the trailer.
yeah, like I just finished playing. I'm drenched in sweat, but I'm like, perfect. That's great.
Yeah.
Um, but it was out of my comfort zone, and
Yeah.
I think I learned a lot by going out of my comfort zone.
Man, you learn so much about when you go out of your comfort zones. Uh, you learn so much about what you actually know.
Yeah,
Like what do I actually know? Because I'm about to step into something that I don't feel comfortable in, but can I? It's that whole like going back to the three P's. Like can I pull this off?
yeah,
Can I make this moment happen? And hopefully the foundation is there for you to just go like, okay, I mean, thankfully auto ISO is pretty great, but I mean, if you keep your ISO strong and you understand that the relative connection between aperture and shutter speed, you're gonna be fine. Like,
yeah,
and then also like creating the depth idea, like figuring out like how much you want to frame. I think that's another thing that I think social media has I'm learning to kind of live with is the idea of framing has changed so much. The way a portrait looks or the way an image looks is so different now than when like started taking photos and learning about photography,
oh yeah,
and learning how to frame something um, not in portrait and more landscape. Because we've been geared to this idea that like we consume in portrait so much now.
right,
Um, and so figuring out myself, like how do I make something more appealing in portrait mode, or portrait scape rather than landscape.
yeah, and
And
yeah, just being in the retail
yeah,
photography world, I'm like, we gotta shoot, a 2x1 or 3x1,
a
and you're
banner.
like nothing fits in that.
Right.
Come on.
What do you want me to do with this, guys? Yeah. Here's a
I
strip of shoes. Here's
yeah.
a
I
yeah.
give our creative director so much grief all the time because I'm just like, you're like, you gave me like 20 t-shirts and you wanted it in a
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about your shirt, like the your hoodie that you have on right now, like cramming images all in that words. Like, how do I frame? No one
yeah,
teaches you how to do that.
yeah.
That's a whole
And I
trial
mean
and error
that's
thing.
and even when I started photography, that wasn't a thing,
Right, right.
This is all like new. Now we gotta shoot for Facebook ads
Oh
or
gosh,
Google
yes,
ads or
yeah,
all this stuff, and you're like, who comes up with these dimensions?
right.
Can we push
Well,
back on
even
this?
even the idea that music going to music and social media, we have so many artists that are creating now. I've heard through the grapevine stories about how artists will be hired for something, but they only have like a 60-second blurb or like a 20 like a minute or 2 minute blurb, and that's all they know. Either know how to write or how to perform because they don't write longer than that. They write the jingles for social medias.
Right.
Like here's a great hook, but it's only a minute long hook. Like that's it. Like well, that doesn't. What's the rest of the story? Like I
Right.
need more of a song here. And
Well,
melodically, I need more more than that.
well, being part of the punk hardcore scene, a minute song is long,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I guess so. That makes sense.
but you can do a lot in a minute.
That's true.
But I think I saw some random I think Instagram story or something because
Yeah.
I don't do TikTok, but
Oh yeah, me either.
it was like it was like the National Football League Monday Night Football intro song. It's
Uh-huh.
like 5 notes,
Yes.
and it's like you know every time that's played, like 20 grand or something
Man,
crazy.
yeah.
Just like oh,
Was it John Tesh? Da-da-da, 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 da-da. Something like that. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a John Tesh.
it's just like oh my goodness. So there's like
Da 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 da. That's I think that's it.
I don't watch enough football. I'm baseball and hockey.
There you go.
Um,
Nice.
uh, but yeah, but there's something cool about being able to create that much emotion in that little short time.
It's true. It is true. I'll give him that
Because
for sure.
yeah, I wish I could do it.
Yeah.
I'd do a jingle every day if I could.
Yeah.
Um, but coming from my background, which wasn't very classically trained in anything, I did trumpet in elementary
That's some. I mean,
elementary through like freshman year of high
you had to
school.
learn how to read music, I'm assuming.
I did.
Yeah.
Do I remember it? Not really. But having now come back to trying to compose music
Yeah.
and write sheet music, like
Yeah.
I don't fully understand it,
Gotcha.
but
Okay.
I can kind of navigate it.
Sure. Yeah.
And the program I use, kind of really walks you through it. So
That's
like
awesome.
I could see what note it's sounding.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So
Like as you
like
place the note,
yeah.
that's nice.
So I can kind of go, okay, I know that these notes sound good together. Or
Right.
so and I've also learned like looking at notes on a staff,
Uh-huh.
it's like, you know, a note in between the lines is going to sound good with the note in between the next lines. And
Yeah.
so like you start learning how a chord looks and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm
Absolutely.
like, all right, it hasn't totally disappeared in my vocabulary, but it's
It's still back there.
yeah, it just takes a lot of prodding to come back
Hey,
to
that's
it.
awesome, man. That's the fact that you're able to bring some of that back out and use it again is really good.
Yeah. I I want to get a piano, like a
Yeah,
rated key, just because I did take piano lessons for a little bit, and
nice.
my parents have a baby grand piano at their
Oh,
house.
wow. That's awesome.
So anytime I'm there, I'm trying to figure things out that I may have actually wrote sheet music for, but I can't
Right,
play it. So
right.
it's like I want to be able to connect the two again. Be able
That's cool.
to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
play something that I write.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but I think I learned that guitar is probably the instrument I'll be most proficient in, that and bass. But
Nice.
guitar is how I write a song that I can then
Okay,
take it and then compose something around it.
that's really cool. Yeah.
Like I'll take a melody and then make it a string
I
section.
feel like there's a lot of new software out now that will trans transpose your like if you play guitar like the melody on the guitar it'll
code
it'll
making.
MIDI like write out what the notes are.
Right.
I think in Logic, I know I have Logic. I use Logic for recording, and sometimes it'll if I play the notes out, it can transcribe what I'm playing out as best as it can. Sometimes it's not timing wise, it's not quite right,
Right.
but I can sit there and nudge things around to make it look right.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many cool tools now. I'm sure there's AI tools now that will listen to you playing a melody on a guitar and then transcribe it for you. I'm sure
Like,
there's tons.
you messed up here, here, and here. We'll make it better for you.
Yeah. Right. You should make it should sound like this instead.
Yeah. Give up. No. um,
Hey, that is one thing I will say that I'm glad I don't feel like AI will ever take a performer's job. It can perform music. It can play music, but it can't perform music.
right. There's
That's
no,
it. There's no soul. There's
yeah.
absolutely no soul to it. Like it may take ideas from other players and try and create that, but you're never I don't the human emotional depth that we experience will never I truly believe will never be encompassed by a computer.
Yeah. One of my old punk bands, the drummer on his bass drum had a sticker that says "Drum machines have no soul."
Yes, I've seen that sticker before.
And I'm like, it's so good, and it's still, and that was,
Still applicable.
dude, like in the late 1990s or early
Yeah.
2000s, and it's
Yes.
still very
Still
relevant.
applicable. Yeah, totally.
Um, well, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I think we'll get into it a little bit in the questions too, but
Yeah.
I view a life of creation as very multifaceted. Like even an accountant is a creator of some sort.
100%.
Like you saying you can't do math, I can't do spreadsheets very well either. And it's like that is a gift and that's a talent.
Yeah.
They may not be creative or an
It's
artist.
his own version of creative.
Right.
I think that we have as creatives, we've often kind of said, "Oh, that part of the world is not creative,"
Right.
and like kind of I don't know, pigeonholed it as like not creative work.
Right.
But the more I talk to people that are lawyers or spreadsheet, my brother's a statistician. He works for he can do all that stuff. I see the beauty and art in that aspect of learning.
Hmm.
It looks totally different than the way I do it, but at the same time, it doesn't. It's dedication to something and expressing it the best way possible and sharing that with people. And I think that's art. That's art as well.
Yeah.
And I look at people that can work as a, a banker, deal with numbers all day long, and they have that matrixy look to their eyes, like they're just like looking at numbers and like, yeah, it's gonna be this. I'm like, what the? How did you do that?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh,
But
my
what I
daughter
want,
can do math so fast, and I'm always impressed.
yeah. I mean, it's again, I'll probably talk about it later, but it's just like I think we're all uniquely, wonderfully created for purposes.
Yeah.
And really, the purpose is a life of creation. And
Mm,
you're creating something that then benefits others
yeah.
because we're not supposed to be the same.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's why it's important to have artists, it's important to have police people, it's important to have
Yes.
people who know numbers, engineers,
Yeah. Yeah.
doctors. Like
Yeah.
one of my buddies, we were talking about like how scary would that be if the world was only artists?
Yeah, for sure. We would not get anything done.
So it,
Or we would get some things done, but very niche things.
yeah, yeah. He's like, could you imagine the road? It'd be
Yeah.
like all over the place. Go with your
Yeah.
feelings. You're like,
I don't want to disturb this section of the forest. I
right.
don't like should we go around it? Let's go around it. Let's go around it. Yeah.
And then let's go back and then go over it so we can
Right.
see it.
Instead
Yeah,
of, hey, here's some dynamite, let's just blow a hole through.
yeah. There's a good middle ground. There's got to be. Um. Anyway, well, I wanted to talk to you about coffee.
Yeah.
because you're a barista when you can,
Yes. Yes.
and I love coffee. So,
Yeah, let's go.
so how did you get into that? And like, I know
Man,
you still do that occasionally.
I have a friend that is this is kind of a left field thing, but it'll kind of explain some things. I have a friend that's she's a psychologist, but she doesn't like want to like diagnose me just because of like we're friends. But she's like, you're slightly on the autistic level. You you get these really headlong, passionate things, and you just just jump off the ledge and like learn everything you possibly can. And so I chalked it up to a little of my ADHD and stuff like that. But coffee became a thing because traveling, you drink a lot of coffee. You drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
I got really hooked into coffee. My first coffee that I remember that I liked was a white chocolate mocha from Starbucks in 2002 in Chicago. I was walking around Chicago. It was snowing, and I was walking with my friends, and they were like, "We're gonna go get coffee." And I'm like, "I've never had coffee before," and so that's the first thing I ever had. And that's a lot of people's first story is that it's like they got a really cool drink or something like that. Fast forward through college, I worked at a coffee shop. I volunteered at this place. It was a nonprofit. It was a really cool like college hangout spot, and we get more and more interested. Like I learned some barista skills there, and it was really fun. I loved it. Keep fast forwarding through college. I'm traveling, touring, and as we go from city to city, I experience coffee shops and different things, and that's the fun part about touring is you get to see the world and the cultures of the world as well as the way people eat and drink, and so experiencing a pour over for the first time, I was like, that's different. I like that. Like I had already been carrying around my Mr. Coffee and a blade grinder. Had been doing this for like 7 years now. And the guy walks in and is like, "Hey, it's like we have this thing called pour over," and I'm like, "Tell me more," And so I learn about like specialty single origin coffees, and so I start learning more, and I'm like, "Okay, I need even more information. Like, tell me about this." Like, I know coffees from different parts of the world, and I know I like that type of coffee from this country, but I don't know why. And so I just started reading more and started talking to baristas more and learning and learn just filling my information in head. Starting to read blogs now. We've got blogs available by this point in my journey. So I start reading blogs and like forums about like how to brew coffee and how to make coffee and espresso and just like flooding my head, not just with coffee and caffeine, but information.
Yeah.
So
It's a
just
lot.
I keep learning and going, and I bought a little home espresso machine, a Breville dual boiler, and I started to teach myself like espresso barista skills, or I shouldn't say teach myself. I already had some, but like really kind of fine tuning it. And I start feeling really confident. I like it a lot, and I realized that the next journey in all of this is I should try and get a job like at a real legit coffee shop. And so I had met a couple in here in Memphis. They had started roasting about 2 years prior to, yeah, about 2 years prior to me meeting them. I befriend them, enjoy hanging out with them. Their kids are the same age as my kids, and so it's really fun. And then they had this opportunity to open a coffee shop, and they were like, "Hey, would you be interested?" And so I had guest barista at some festivals with different like at different Christian festivals. They'd have like a little cafe booth set up, and I had gone and like guest barista there, and like I still had my chops, like I still could do things. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to be involved. And so it was a coffee shop here in Memphis called Vice and Virtue. And sadly, they're not in business anymore. But um, over the course of the pandemic, let's see, got my, I was, I got my job there at the beginning of 2020, and I was on board with them all the way until they closed. Um, I loved being behind bar. There's a lot of element of coffee, being a good barista. I can attribute that to pretty much any job, but like being a good barista, taking my skills that I had as a performer, my purpose, practice, and performance, and it all shifted right over into being a really kind, good barista. Learning the customers and all the skills that I had into learning pouring latte art and explaining all the information that I had it all just like all of my music knowledge, as far as like the work that I put into it and like the ethical aspect of like doing it well and having a reason. I shifted all of that information and dropped it right over in coffee, and it worked out great. And it was so much fun. And so currently, like it's tough a little bit right now to try and find a job because of touring, because I'm home right now. Like I'm home for most of January. And I'd love to work a coffee gig right now. It'd be really fun. I'm sure if I asked around, I could probably find one pretty quick. But the beauty of that last job with Vice and Virtue was that they 100% worked with me, and they're like, "You just tell us when you're in town, and we'll find a spot for you." Like, and so I think it's more just like asking friends now that own shops around town because I have a good relationship with a lot of coffee shops around the city, and like being part of the barista community, I keep up with a lot of what's going on, and so a lot of them are like, "Yeah, it's like." This so and so's over here is always looking for baristas, or so and so over here is looking for they always can take on as someone now and then. Um, but there's something about coffee too that I attribute a lot of community around. Like the beauty of this unique beverage is powerful. Like it's like, hey, do you want a cup of coffee? Dude, yeah. It's like, and you pour them a cup, and then all of a sudden they're wanting to have this conversation. They just start talking. There's something beautiful about handing off a cup of coffee to someone that opens the door to some really amazing conversations. And some of my favorite conversations I've ever had in my life was, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Let's go chat. Let's go hang out. Or, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to go grab a cup first. And then just starting the conversation or passing my to-go cup that I've got all my stickers on to the barista and then bringing it back going, what does this mean? Seeing a coffee sticker on something and getting this like conversation started. It's really beautiful. And um, I have a lot of God analogies as well from coffee. And I think I'm gonna put together like a little, either a blog or a little book on those things because I see so much of God and how he works through coffee as well. And just the idea that, you know, there's a lot of analogies in the working part of as a barista, and how God interacts with us and how I see him working. And I'd love to sit down and kind of like really flesh that out on paper one day and type it all out. I've kind of
Yeah.
just I've explained it every now and then, but I should probably sit down and type it out
Yeah.
sometime.
Do it before you
Yeah,
forget it.
it is one of my favorite things. I love being able like that is very closely um similar in language to music where I can pour a cup of coffee anywhere in the world and pass it off and I can see through their eyes whether they like it or not and hopefully that communication I've been to so many coffee shops around the world and walked in and we roughly can talk the same language without ever really speaking the same language and it's really fun. So
Yeah.
yeah, coffee's a deep love of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, one of the things I thought when I was thinking about, different types of creation is, there's something to be said about creating experiences.
Yes.
And I think coffee is something that is just a beverage, but it can create this experience.
Absolutely.
Like I
Absolutely.
remember some of my really good cups of coffee, and I
Yeah.
can be like, I remember where I was, what I was doing,
Yeah.
who I was with.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then I think, whiskey is something
Yeah, for sure.
like, or cigars. Like I may have a cigar with a neighbor here this week
Nice.
too, and it's just like, it's, a lot of people see it as vices and stuff like that, but I think things done in moderation that force you to slow down,
Yeah.
and especially when you interact with someone else,
Yeah.
I think that's creating this experience and connection and a relationship that is important. And
Yeah.
I think that those things are all throughout human history. There's always something where I think I think it might be more relevant to men because I think men typically don't just sit down and talk. you know.
That's true. That's true.
We need
I
something.
agree. Yeah.
So, you know, I tell my wife sometimes, like, I have a pipe. I'm like, I like to go take my pipe out in the backyard sometimes, and I will pray sometimes just
Yeah.
while smoking the pipe. And she's like, or, I sit and think with a drink, and she's just like, why don't you just pray? Like, I can, but there's something about, okay, I'm taking this moment to enjoy this,
Yeah.
and then focus on that.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
That's
it's
good. That's good. I often use like my coffee prep time as just thinking about people and praying over people, and thinking about the hands that every consumable item has had multiple hands touch it before you, um, and thinking about the life that it had before it got to you and all the hands that touched it, like especially coffee.
yeah,
Coffee is, I mean,
incredible.
the journey it takes to get to us is wild, and the process that it takes to actually go from the seed of a cherry to get to be on my table in my kitchen in Memphis, Tennessee. There's so many hands and so many things that have happened to get there, and I think about that often, like thinking about the countries that I drink coffee from, and going, man, I've never been there. I'd love to see that one day, and kind of see what life is like there. But some of the places I have been, I go like, I know exactly what that feels like, what it smells like. Like my one good thing about my, I don't know, my special abilities, my ADHD is that I can remember in smells and taste the places I've been, like, and I can transport myself back to those places just by like thinking a little bit about how it is, and then I can remember a taste or a smell from that moment, and I I'm grateful to have seen so much of the world and experienced it that way. But uh, yeah, it's coffee, beverages, like things like that. To be able to sit down and have a conversation with people over that thing is really powerful. And it does. Um, it's a mental slash emotional handshake. Like
Hmm.
you pass the drink off and you're like, hey, this is like the indicator that I'm willing to journey down a conversation with you.
Yeah,
And it's really fun. It's really beautiful to be able to. I pride myself on good service as a barista, um, making sure that the customer knows from my introduction and welcoming them in all the way to the moment I pass them that cup that they are wanted to be there, and that I hope that that drink gives them something, a little bit of extra energy or comfort for the rest of their day.
yeah,
Similar to music, like I'm passing off something that I hope that they, like I put this work into this and I'm caringly giving it to you so that in hopes that you would have a good day.
yeah,
Um, and I'm grateful for the friendships that I've made through being a barista and the customers that I've been able to serve. I feel like I've done a good job of passing that on to the people.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, if you handed me a cup of coffee, I'd smile. Like,
One day we're gonna do it again.
yeah, yeah. I kind of dove into that world a little bit, trying to learn as much as I can, and it was like read a couple books and just like, oh, this is a wormhole. I don't know if I can go down
It's
because
very fun.
I mean, it was like I read a book on like Hawaiian coffee and
Oh
stuff,
yeah, uh-huh.
and I'm like, it's super fascinating. I love Hawaii,
Yeah,
and it's one of the only places in America that
right,
produces coffee, really.
right.
And it's like it's such a cool, unique thing.
Absolutely.
But once I started going more into the science of it, I'm like, whoa, I'm a photographer. This is too much. But
I have
it,
that weird side of me that like always is wanting to learn something different. Like my friends used to call me a monkey because I'd be like, "Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that?
yeah,
Oh, what's that?" It's like a little bit more like a squirrel, but like
yeah, yeah,
I'm also like
yeah.
learn all the little things.
I'm right there. I'm reading a book on gems of the world, like gemstones and stuff, because
Whoa,
I
that's awesome.
just super fascinating to me, and
Very cool.
and it's crazy because it's very similar to coffee. Like
Yeah,
all like
parts of the world.
I have a stone that was
Yeah.
cut for me by a guy in Singapore that
Whoa.
he got the stone from the miner in Cambodia.
Whoa.
And it's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
That's crazy
The
that it's
journey it took.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's now I had a hat pin made with it.
That's so cool.
And
What's the stone?
it's
Or what's the
a
gem?
it's a zircon.
Oh, zircon. Okay. I've heard of that.
Um, it's so, and it's a blue Cambodian blue zircon, which
Whoa.
means it was heat treated there in the
Okay.
traditional Cambodian way, which is basically
Wow.
they basically just throw it into intense fire,
Wow.
and he even sent me like a picture of the mud hole that the guy found it in,
Oh my gosh.
I'm
Wow.
like, this is just incredible. And the more I read on it, it's like, to me, as a Christian, it just points all to God and just the
Yeah.
crazy thought and creativity that he put into this. But it's like there's, several thousand minerals out there,
Right.
but there's
Right.
only
A
six or
certain
seven.
combination.
Yeah. Well, and there's
Yeah.
only six or seven shapes that these things will be in.
Oh, no way. Oh, wow.
And it's like, for all of these things to happen
Uh-huh.
is incredible.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and it's just fascinating, and it's like, I think the same way with coffee, just like how every continent has these different flavors
Yeah.
because of their soil and
Yep.
their, just climate,
Yep.
everything.
That's right. That's right.
And
Yeah.
I was jokingly wanting to do a band called the Pour Overs at one point,
That's so good.
and it was all gonna be coffee related.
Yeah.
And the one song I kind of wrote out was like, "No coffee for racists,"
Nice. Yes.
because I'm like, you can't enjoy this drink if you're a racist,
That is
because
so true. Yeah.
do you know where this came from?
Right? It was stolen. It was stolen from Africa. Yeah.
It's
You
like,
you should, if you don't know about it, I'll have to send you some information, but there's a coffee shop slash coffee roaster here in Memphis called Coffee Black.
oh, I think I've heard of them. I
He's
think I
partnered with the owner of it, his name's Bartholomew Jones. And not Bartholomew Jones, Bartholomew Bart Henderson, sorry. And they are like his heart is to have a completely black African supply chain from roaster. I'm sorry, from grower to roaster to server to getting it out to the customer. And so far, he's done that here in Memphis. It's got the anti-gentrification coffee club. It's really cool. It's like it's in the hood, and you go out there, and it's a whole experience. Like if you've never been, the first cup is always free. They explain the history of coffee to you while you're getting your cup, and the journey it took. How it's stolen from Africa, and how Dutch biologists were curious about this thing, stole it, took it with them, planted it in their countries, and that's how the coffee bean kind of started to spread around the same time as people were being stolen from Africa into slavery. And so like this idea that they go hand in hand, that this drink that's so popular around the world is made in a part of the world where so many people are hated upon,
yeah.
and like a people group that has been misunderstood for so long and not treated fairly for so long, but yet we use their resources all the time. And so yeah, I mean it's yeah, Coffee Black, CX, Coffee Black, CXFFEE.
Okay, I'll have
These
to
yeah,
check that
replaces
out.
the O. Yeah, it's really good. They're amazing coffee too. They do a great job of roasting. His wife helps roast, and she's like the one of like a top female. I don't know about top female. in the country, but she is one of the rising stars in coffee roasting in that world.